Salads don't win scrums. I absolutely love this episode. Emotional, intense, just edge of your seat, just nail-biting episode. Season 2, episode 4, Chasing the Sun. Absolutely incredible. We picked up where we left off with the France game, and it started off with Eben Etzebeth. He had 4 minutes left in the sin bin, and France was pressuring. They were pressuring and potentially about to score a try that would have put them ahead in that game, and it was a nail biter of a game, and it was just cool to see how everything transpired. And I still have to watch the full game. I have not had the chance to see any of these matches in full at this point, just as we've been developing and making content and doing all this. But an absolutely incredible game, and it came down to the last play or the last sequence where they strip the ball, or South Africa strips the ball and kicks it out, and they win the game. And just absolutely incredible. You can just see the emotion from both sides. And what I really loved is that while South Africa is just exhilarated, they're just pumped, and just all that pressure's off their shoulders from winning that game, and they're just excited and happy. I love how they went to interview Sia Khaleesi at the in the interview, and he's talking about how we're just so elated, we're so excited, happy, relieved to win this match. And at the other side of the coin, Sia was also heartbroken for France because he saw how much it meant to the French nation, to their team, to their fans, and to that entire nation of losing that match. You just saw the heartbreak and despair and sadness in their eyes, and it just really shows the emotional side and the camaraderie that's built within the world of rugby. These two teams and nations are going head to head, fighting tooth and nail, trying to get an inch on each other and win this match. And it's all going down on the middle of on the pitch. But once the game is over, you can celebrate, you can be happy, you can be excited and elated for your team. But at the same time, you can feel the compassion for the opponent, because you know how much that it meant to them to win this match, and to see them lose and to see the anguish and despair on their face. That's the beautiful side of rugby that I absolutely love. There's compassion built into the sport, and there's a love for one another, the fellow man, the fellow nation that are involved once the battle is done. And that's where I absolutely love that they highlight that although you are happy and excited for your win, you're also absolutely gutted for the opposition, because you know how much it meant for them as much as it meant for you as a nation. I thought that was absolutely incredible, and cool that they highlighted that within this episode. And we get into the England match, where they're playing an England team that beat them prior. So there's a lot of the game planning. There's that psyche, that mentality of, we played this team weeks ago and they beat us, and now we're getting to a point where we're playing them for the life of our nation, to get to the finals, to set up this match against the All Blacks, and really get us in the position to win our 4th World Cup ever. I think the only team that would be the only team to win the 4th World Cup ever, four times, and then getting our back-to-back World Cup championship. So there's a lot riding on the line with this game, and the premise or the topic and the focus of this episode was the forwards. The forwards were the focus of this episode, and I just really love how they were able to break down what it is to be a forward. We always look at the backs. I should say I always look at the backs, and those are the flashy positions, what we call in American football the skilled positions, like our wide receivers, our running backs, our corners, DBs, the skilled positions, right? The ones that are making these big flashy plays, the big catches to score all the touchdowns. And in rugby, the backs and the wings that score the tries and get the kicks and all that good stuff. But you have the meat and potatoes, the hogs of your team, of in football, are your offensive linemen, your D linemen, the ones that are in the trenches, the dark places, as Razzie and they call it, take it, the gutter, like the team, the guys that fight in the gutter, that are going head to head, fighting tooth and nail, fighting for every inch, and the ones that do the hard work, that do the gritty work. And I love that they highlighted that in this episode, and it was cool just to hear the perspective of what goes into being a forward, and the amount of pressure and tension their body's under. And when you hear about what a tight head prop goes through, what a hooker, what a loose head prop goes through, and the strain they feel on their head, their shoulders, their neck, their lower body, just the amount of lactic acid and tension that's built in that moment to just will the team forward, and like what they go through, the type of pressure that's on their shoulders is immense, right? And as I was just looking through, watching it, the thought that kept going through our mind was like, yeah, I understand the pressure that's going on the upper body, and like how tight you have to keep your core. Your back is going through that immense, just like that, a ton of pressure, a ton of, you know, weight on your shoulders, on your back, on your core, and all that stuff, in your spine. What kept going through my mind is like, I thought about the pressure on your Achilles and your calves, and just like holding that position, pressing from a low angle, the amount of tension that your calves and things are under. It's like, I was thinking like, man, your damn calves feel like they were probably ripped to shreds, and just your Achilles pop off the bone for them to be able to withstand that amount of pressure and keep their body in check or in shape and healthy with the amount of weight that they're bearing on their body. Is incredible for them to withstand that pressure. And I just think the amount of pressure that their calves and their Achilles take, I was just thinking about like what you have to do on a health basis, on a recovery basis. Is it like rolling out your feet, calf raises? You're doing like tibialis raises, like the tibia, basically your shin, is getting your tibia strong and making sure that your knees and everything below that can withstand that pressure without completely exploding and unraveling from your body. That was just a thought that just kept cycling through my mind. It was like, damn, dude, like if you're pressing as a forward to keep your body in check, to make sure that it stays in place, it's incredible. It's incredible the amount of weight and pressure that they put themselves under. And I really love the strategy of South Africa, where the coach is talking about he never has his team, his forwards, practice against a sled, because he's like, when are you ever going to push a sled in a real game situation? Never. They're never going to bring out a sled in the field and you scrum against a sled, a machine, something mechanical. You're going to be mano a mano, man against man. So we might as well practice what we go against, right? We're going man against man. Let's practice man against man, because that's the true tension. That's the true test that you're going to be undertaking. And a sled will never replicate that, because you can only push a sled. It's never going to push back, right? And I really love that mentality of actually practicing what the situation is going to entail. And that's just the little nuances and the thought process that goes into getting a team prepared for these matches, and why you can get these little advantages, right? Because being weight room strong is completely different than being like what you call man strength, right? A man, or like somebody like, you know, when your dad can pick you up and throw you around. Like, I may be strong in the weight room, but my dad would absolutely whoop my ass. Right? And he wouldn't be in the weight room, but he could toss me around even though I'm squatting all this weight, pushing bench and doing all this stuff. A man's strength is different than weight room strength, or that farmer strength is different than being weight strong. And I love how they broke down that the forwards in South Africa, they all come from farmland. There is something about having that farm strength, that country strength. And you may or may not be familiar. I'm born in a city or a small town by the name of Alamogordo, New Mexico. I was born on Holloman Air Force Base because my dad that's where he retired in the military. But my city, where I'm from, is all farmers. It's a country town where we're just like country boys, really. And in the summer, when I used to get prepared for the upcoming season in football, my buddy Bubba, we used to go down to his ranch in Oro Grande, and all we used to do is we used to bale hay, we used to wire fences, we used to drill poles. Everything that you do on the farm is what we did in preparing for our football season. Of course, I was running, lifting weights, and doing all that good stuff as far as getting weight room strong. But the farm strength completely made my body and changed it to a different level of strength, because the muscles that are required to move unbalanced weight, throwing hay bales, moving cattle, doing all that stuff created a different type of strength and a different type of grit, because you're under the sun, under the environmental, pressures or, strain that you go through. And you're also dealing with like ranch stuff. And so that's how we got prepared in Alamogordo, is going on the ranch and doing a hard day's work. And then we would go work out after that with like a well-conditioned weight room. And that's what it was shown to me in the documentary with the South African props, the South African forwards. Most of those men were raised in the country, and they just want to do gritty farm work, blue collar work that is just grunt work. So you're used to just the grind of the day. It's called just like that, just that grunt work. You have to wake up in the morning and the work is done when it's done. You just have to get it done. You just have to move things. And that's where they build that resilience, that tenacity, that perseverance, that strength. And I love how that's highlighted to the mentality of what makes them great scrummers, because they're just hard workers from their lifestyle. From the day they were born, they were on the farm moving weight, and now they're in a professional atmosphere where they're just moving weight. They're doing the gritty stuff that's not highlighted, the things that you can't account for. You're not going to be getting tries. You're not going to be getting all of the beautiful kicks and conversions that we all cheer and roar about. These men are just doing the gritty, solid work that has to be done, that win these penalties in the scrum, in the tough minutes where your legs are on fire, and they just barrel through the next man. And that's just pure grit. And I absolutely love that they highlighted that. And as they went into that England game, that's what won them the matches. That's what won them the match, I should say, is that tenacity. Winning those scrums when was it Ardenser knocked on the ball in their 5-meter mark, and the forwards got him out of a pickle because they were able to win the scrum, get the penalty, get the ball back, and allow South Africa to get back in the game, to get the try to score. And then they were able to scrum it out and allow Andre Pollard, who is absolutely ice cold, to kick the game winner, which put South Africa up 1 point to beat England. And I have to say, England played an absolutely exceptional match. You know, if I said Andre Pollard is ice cold, Owen Farrell, man, he was an ice cold kicker too. That man was just absolutely sniping kicks off the field, making everything. And England played a solid match. And I have to go back and watch that the full 80 minutes and see what happened as far as like the drama that occurred. But this documentary highlighted, I feel, extremely well, where England had the advantage. They were able to weather the conditions where it was rainy, the field conditions were sloppy, and the ball handling was a little bit crazy. England was able to weather that storm a lot faster than South Africa and put themselves in a position to be ahead in the game. But the grit of South Africa and taking advantage of those moments, and that it all came down to this episode was about the forwards taking advantage of those grit moments, just those blue collar moments where they're just barreling through the man and winning the penalty, put them in a position to win the match. And I absolutely love that they highlighted the forwards, because it's not a prestigious position. They're not going to get the highlights, and there's not going to be on the highlight reels of, look at this guy win the scrum, and we're watching 8-minute montages of that, right? But you can see the mindset of who they are as individuals. They're doing it for their country, South Africa, and you know, it shows that they're not doing it for the glory. They're doing it for something that's bigger than themselves. A back may miss a ball, mishandle it, knock it on, but they're there to pick up the scraps. And like Ox was saying, or Ox or Bondi, or what was his name, Bongi was saying, they're like, we're going to take you to the gutter, and we're going to take you below the gutter where it's the darkest places, right? And we're going to see we're going to drag you to the depths of the gutter and see if you can handle it. And I absolutely love that about this episode. Super cool to see. And I'm just checking my notes on, that's what I want to highlight. Pierre-Steph du Toit. When he stood up in the locker room at half, there's players like that are absolutely silent. They never say a word. They never voice their opinion. They're just the silent killers, right? They run the match and they do what they have to do. And you have players who are more boisterous through the locker room and, you know, shouting and doing what they do. But there's players like du Toit that are quiet, but the moment they say something, it's for a purpose. It's impactful, where you have to stop and listen, because their words are few and far between. And when they say things, it's not said very often, but when they do say something, it's very impactful. So you're forced to listen to them, because their words are so measured, precise, and like I said, few and far between. You don't hear it often. So when he stood up in the locker room and they're down to England, and he said what he had to say about just like, we need to get our stuff together. We need to come together and make this thing happen. All the players stood at attention and listened like, wow, like du Toit, this man never says anything. So you know how much it means to him. You know how much this jersey means to him. You know how much it means to him to represent our country and stand for something. And Razzie even said it. He's like, my speech was completely negated, null and voided, because A man like that who stood up in the 0 hour where, you're never going to hear from him much, but when he says like something like that, it completely wiped everything I have to say off the slate, and the team got behind his word. And those type of players are so impactful because their words are valuable, because they're not saying much. They're not just throwing words out where you hear it all the time. Like, yeah, he's talking, he's doing what he has to do. That's just whomever. They always say something in the locker room. They always have something to say. A man like that, once he speaks, his words resonate at the highest frequency. That's when teammates listen and understand like how pivotal that moment is. And I absolutely love that part of the documentary where you can see the players that needed to step up in those moments stepped up, and they stepped up in a massive way. So Pierre stepped to toy, Ox and Bongi, those were players that were like the highlight of this episode for me. And just the grit, the tenacity, the perseverance to pull that one out, fighting tooth and nail with a very, very, very tough England team that played exceptionally well and just happened to lose it in the latter moments of that game. And very fun to watch. Qrew, I'm just checking if I missed anything. To me, the scrummies, the scrummers, the forwards, the highlight of this episode, absolutely exceptional. I'm loving it. I love how they're highlighting everyone and giving them their roses, so to speak. They're getting their praise that they deserve. They're getting the respect and recognition that they deserve, excuse me. And I'm absolutely loving this series. I'm loving these episodes, and I'm excited to check out the final one. The battle of two powerhouse nations in the final episode of Chasing the Sun, season 2, episode 5. Absolutely amazing, and all the drama and build up that this episode created. It was a race to 4 World Cup championships. It was New Zealand had 3, South Africa had 3, and the winner of this final would be the first team in the history of rugby to win 4 World Cups. And that's enough drama within itself, but everything leading up to it, with the episode starting out on the allegations where one of England's players accused Bongi of making a racial slur in their game, and it went under, what you would say, a jurisdiction, or went under investigation is the word I'm looking for, where that whole week leading up to the World Cup, instead of focusing about the game itself, they were more focused, and then when I say they, I'm speaking of the media, was more focused about these allegations, the potential racial slur allegations that came up, instead of focusing on the game of rugby. So when they were doing all the pressers, coaches, players, they were all asked about that specific event, their thoughts, the character evaluation on Bongi, and that whole back and forth that's created from media. And it was everything outside of the game of rugby, which is their main focus. And so that was highlighted very well, where they're talking about what was the mindset of the locker room at that time, how were they able to back Bongi, and what sort of sparked this media firestorm that took the attention from where it needed to be, focusing on the beauty of what was happening with the World Cup, one of the most amazing World Cups from what I've heard from you in the history of rugby, with these games like so neck and neck, and it's just like down to the wire, and just thrilling games. But instead of focusing on that and having these two just giants in rugby go against each other head to head for being the potential World Cup winner for the 4th time, and having that first ever happen, and it was overshadowed by these allegations. And so they did a good job of covering that and breaking down like all the things that were going in and unraveling behind the scenes, and how they were able to overcome that. And eventually the allegations, they acquitted Bongi, so he was able to play in the World Cup. That ruling came down a day before the actual game happened. So it was a lot of just tension and turmoil outside of rugby, dealing with the unnecessary politics and allegations that happened. But it rolled into the players of the match, where Razzie and his management team, they all made the decision to run the 7-1 lineup for South Africa, which was an incredibly bold decision, because having 7 forwards and 1 back as their lineup is something that is unprecedented, right? Because it leaves no room for error. If someone gets injured, then you have this disadvantage, this gap that's created. And I know you can explain it to me a little bit deeper as I'm starting to understand the structure and these the strategy of rugby when it comes to like the 7-1, the 6-2, the 5-3 line out, which is lineup when it's the more traditional sense. But it was one of those bold decisions that he made going against a very tough and strong rival. The New Zealand All Blacks and South Africa just have such a storied rivalry and such a respect for one another, and their matches are always tightly close. And so it takes us all the way back to 95 when New Zealand and South Africa played, and Nelson Mandela was there, and South Africa won that match, to the present day, almost how many years later? 30 years later? Well, 28 years later at this point, but nearly 30 years later, where the same two teams are playing and the stakes are just as high, and it's just created an incredible storyline. And we had that was the decision that was made. So the starters that they had from the week prior, the main players, they now became what I call practice squad players, where they're the ones looking at the game film, assessing the opposing team, like what their starting lineup is going to be, and replicating the style, like the ticks that they have, the player patterns, the movement style, the play style, and trying to be that mimic or that role for the players on South Africa, so they can give them a good look and prepare them for the game. And that's one of those tough decisions as an athlete, or those tough moments as an athlete, that, you know, you went from being a starter, you have the opportunity to play in the biggest match in the entire world, like of your life. All eyes are on you, and your coach tells you that you're not going to be starting. Instead, you have to be on the practice squad playing a role of a New Zealand athlete to give your team a better look of what they're going to be facing. That's a very tough thing to do. You have to put all of your ego aside. You have to take the individualistic idea out of like you not being able to start, and look forward to helping the team as a whole and helping them prepare for the game. So I can imagine the emotion that went into hearing that from Razzie, and understanding that, okay, you can have your few moments to cry, but then you have to say, okay, I'm going to accept this role, and I'm going to step up to the plate for my team, for my brothers, for my nation, and this is bigger than me. We're still in this collectively. Although I'm not able to represent the team on the pitch that day, I'm still representing them, because I have to create a vivid picture. I have to put the best piece of intel out there so my men can succeed, and so we can succeed together. And I just imagine as an athlete what that took for them to do, because you know, I say I only imagine. I've been in moments like that, but not at the scale of playing in a World Cup or a defining moment where this is history. This is a game where legends are created. It's a legendary game that will be forever remembered in the history of rugby. And when you look at the call sheet, you're not going to look at the players that were sitting on the bench. You're going to look at the players that are on the field. But when you start understanding all of the work that goes in behind the scenes, there are the unsung heroes, which are the men that were able to sacrifice their individual awards or recognition for the betterment of the team and to inspire a nation as a whole. So it goes to a lot to speak to the character of that team and how they're able to pull their ego aside and do it for the bigger picture and vision. And I just think it's so cool to see. And you know, because we're all competitive people, right? And especially if you played athletics, you can understand in that moment you want to be out there shining, you want to be under the bright lights, but it just takes a different type of person to be able to know your role and to do it with all of your heart and passion, knowing that there's a bigger picture at play. And so I really appreciate that about the documentary and how they highlighted those bench players that got the team that with the starting lineup ready for that game. And it was really cool to see how that played out. And they're also talking about how Dion, he had that shoulder injury where he's a forward, and it was one of those things where if he wasn't in full condition, if he wasn't able to go, it would have completely derailed that plan. So there was a lot of different pieces they were talking about in the lead up to that game where things had to go in their favor, because if it didn't, they're leaving themselves completely exposed. They're a man down, they're a forward down. You don't have the backing of your bench and the depth to come out there and fill these positions. So it was a massive risk in one of the biggest games, or the biggest game of their lives. And so it just took a lot of heart and belief that they were moving forward with the right strategy going into this match against New Zealand. And I just the heart it takes to do that, and to have faith in your players and your men on the field, have faith in your decision, and for the players to buy into that process is absolutely incredible. And it just speaks to the level of trust that Razzie, the management side, the players, they all have in one another, because it just takes one person. You know, you're as strong as your weakest link, right? It takes one person to derail that entire thing because of the lack of belief. But all of the men and people in that organization all believed cohesively, so they came together and were impenetrable, right? They knew what they wanted to do, they believed in the mission, and they all stepped up to the plate and fulfilled their role, which was absolutely incredible. And yeah, just like with Deion's shoulder, how he was able to rehab it and get it going for the game, even though he was not at his 100%. And who is at that point, right? You've played a long, grueling season of rugby, you've had a long tournament, nobody's at 100%. Everybody is hurt and playing injured, so it's a war of attrition at that point. And your men that are on the field, it's just like guts, just pure guts out there, and they're just laying it out on the line, which is so beautiful to see. And so I applaud that decision, and for them to be able to execute it and just have, and essentially the luck that they're able to keep the players on the field so they can execute the strategy as planned. And it was really cool to see how the game unfolded. South Africa had the upper hand. They were nailing the kicks. Every kick was just, man, straight through the post. Andre Pollard was absolutely just booting the ball, right? Incredible, spectacular kicks from him, making those the conversions absolutely insane, having a hell of a game. Bongi unfortunately went out 3 minutes into the match, where that's like, it just sucks your soul, because all the adversity he went through that week. And I imagine, like, I've seen that happen a lot in sports, and it's just like, I'm just sort of spitballing, and I've seen that happen a lot in sports, where a player that gets put under that type of pressure, like the allegations that happened to Bongi the week prior, or during the week, excuse me, there's a mental strain and stress that goes into it. Although he knows he was in the right, he knows his character, and that he wouldn't say anything of that magnitude that is, would racially ignite anybody, right? But even though that type of pressure that gets impressed upon you, it weighs on you heavy. So even though you can say like, oh, it's no big effect, I know who I am as a person, I know I didn't say it, just the thoughts like can whirl around in your head and really take you down. And I think those are those mental blows that we don't see on the outside. It's that mental battle that can just take out your stamina. When I think like it's like a video game of like a Street Fighter, you can keep taking these punches, but your status bar just keeps going chipped down, right? And then there's a point to where you get hit so many times, your status bar can only fill up to like a new limit, because the limit it won't be at the top limit anymore. The limit goes down to a certain level, and so those hits move your meter limit down, and you can only take so much more after that. And then it leads into the game where injuries happen, because the mental side of having to deal with that stress compounds with the physical stress now, and then injuries happen. And I feel like that's what sort of happened to Bongi. And it's a stretch what I'm saying, right? But I've just seen that mental side affect the physical, just because the toll it takes, and your body's responding in so many, it's getting hit from so many different directions, that his body responded from a physical way with injury happening. And so it's unfortunate to see that he was out of that game, but he had Ox on the bench to uplift him and tap him on his leg and give him a positive word of encouragement that he needed, because it's one of those things where you may not be able to participate in the game, talking about Bongi, but his voice still resonates and has a lot of weight to it. So you have to support the next man up. And with Deion stepping on the field, taking that position, playing that hooker role, and unexpectedly playing the hooker role. And he knew right then, I'm in for 77 minutes against one of the top teams in the world in the biggest game of my life, and I'm in a role that I was not expecting to play in, and for him to do what he did and fill the gap of a man like Bongi is absolutely exceptional. It speaks to his character, his perseverance, his belief, his strength in who he is. And I absolutely loved that he was able to fill that gap and fulfill his dream and vision of playing in the World Cup unexpectedly, because he went through that adversity of losing his dad, and like the same thing, the mental side of him playing after losing a loved one. I can only imagine what he had to do to go through to deal with that situation. So it was cool to see how that lead up all happened. And we go into New Zealand went a man down, so it was 15-14 of basically South Africa had the favor, the advantage. And then Sia Khaleesi got a yellow card and he was out. Then it went 14-14, and that's when they interviewed SBW Sonny Bill Williams. And he was talking about, at that moment, he knew, like, we're about to drop the hammer. And in his mind, he said, we're going to put it on them. We're going to beat them by 1 or 2 tries. And I was like, that belief. Because New Zealand, like he said, their games against South Africa, that's the only team, he says, where he feels like it's a formidable opponent. Every other time he lines up against a team, he said, it's just like, okay, I have the confidence, I have the belief we're going to win. He said, but he knows when he lines up against the South Africans, he's like, we're in for a hell of a test match today, and we have to bring our A game. And both sides feel that way because of that rivalry that they have, that respect, but that rivalry, and they know, like, you have to bring your A game and you have to bring big hits and start doing, as they said in like one of the first documentaries, death by 1,000 cuts, because no side is going to back down. No matter how hard you hit them, no matter how many shots you take, no side is going to give up, both New Zealand and South Africa. So it's going to be the last man standing, and best man win at that point. And I really love that about, how they're highlighting each of those sides and just seeing the mindset of a team and teams that will never give up. Those are two nations that never give up on themselves. No matter if they're down one player, no matter if they're injured, they'll keep going until the end, because they have that much belief and pride in themselves to where they know the game is bigger than them. They're playing for a massive purpose, and they will not give up on each other, and they will not give up on their nation, because they know how much goes into it. And that's the support, and that's just the culture that's built within the game. And it was just so cool to see two titans going against each other in that, and just hearing both sides of the aisle going. You hear Sonny Bill Williams representing New Zealand talking about his mindset. Then you have the South African side talking about their mindset, and they're just both have so much belief and confidence in themselves and what their game plan is, and they do not change their game plan for anybody. It's just like, you put up your best players and then we're gonna slug it out. May the best man win. I absolutely love that about this match. And I think, man, I have to really go back and check it out, because when you get these historic matches like that, it's almost just like you'll remember where you were that day, or like what you were doing that day when these events occurred. And too bad I wasn't watching rugby or dialed into the World Cup at this time, because I absolutely would have like soaked this moment up and loved to experience that moment, and just being like, I remember where I was when that happened. And I just really think it's so cool. And what I really like too is that Cheslin went out at the 72nd minute. He knew that he was never gonna see the field, the pitch again for the rest of the game, and he put his team, but not by purpose, by accident, at a disadvantage with that deliberate knock on. And so they were playing a man down now. The score is 12-11. Colby's out, like one of their best players. You have players cramping on the field. So Colby before that had his hamstrings cramping. You have Dwayne, was it Dwayne or Dion? He's cramping up. Players are but he's still fighting through that adversity, even having to be in the scrum and all that. And so now you have a tough New Zealand team. They're 8 minutes left in the match. Things are like coming to the pinnacle, right? Everything's about to blow over. So we're trying to figure it out. And they're just two teams going back and forth. And then it unfolds to where, South Africa stops New Zealand on On the sideline, the ref blows the whistle, game over. South Africa, 4-time World Cup champions. And just to see how much it meant to them and the entire nation, you see people's they're just tears streaming down their face, the players just dropping to their knees, and then Bongi coming to the locker room where, I mean, it was after the first game, but he's sitting there crying because he knows like how much it meant to him to captain the squad and like do something that is like bigger than himself. I absolutely love seeing that. And you just see the emotion and just like finally like the stress drop off of all their shoulders as they get to hoist the trophy, get the medals around their neck, and seeing the nation just like pouring out, like crying with tears, or just sitting there in quiet and like in shock and all, like just inspired and prideful and just like exhilarated, right, for the representation that their men showed on the field, and to have a beacon of hope where they can look at these men and say this team was able to achieve something that nobody ever thought they would in 2019 and in 2023. And you can draw from that hope, you can draw from that success, you can draw from that victory and apply those tenets to your life. And I feel like that's what the South African people do when you can see they have a UFC champion now with Dricus du Plessis being the UFC champion, and all these great things start unfolding for a nation. And it just takes one person, one team, something to get the ball rolling. And then once that ball gets rolling, it creates a snowball effect that can influence and inspire an entire nation to be better, to want to do better, to achieve more, and to achieve greatness. And I can see that that's happening because representation is important. You do not know how far you can go until you see somebody else achieve it, whether that's the person that looks like you from a skin color standpoint, this person that comes from your city that you were living and that you were born in, somebody from your school, somebody you play the sport with. When you see somebody directly tied to you in some way and they achieve a success far beyond your wildest imagination, it opens up your scope of consciousness to where you're like, I've been looking through such a shallow lens for this long, and this individual opened up my world of my perspective to understand that I can to achieve this success. It may not be in that same area of discipline, but it can be in my life. It can be in my job, my family, whatever have you. And you will start applying those tenets in that, because that belief system is now broken, right? The old belief system gets rewired with a new belief system. And that's what I absolutely love is about the hope, the inspiration that South Africa brings to the country. And I really love what Rassie says. 2019, he was talking about focus on the team, because an individual can't inspire anybody if they're not winning. People need to see success before you can inspire. And then when Mapimpi did the salute or showed respect to the woman who passed away or got killed on his hand, that shifted the paradigm for Rassie, where he says, okay, I was wrong. Like, one person can change the fabric of a society. And then you fast forward to where we are in 2023. Like in 2019, that was his old mindset. It got flipped upside down by Mapimpi. You fast forward to 2023, he has that new mindset embedded in him from what happened in 2019 from the Mapimpi situation. And he saw the World Cup as them winning and said, okay, this is for South Africa now. How can we embed and inspire and motivate our nation? Take away rugby. Take rugby out of this. What are the tenets it takes to be a champion? There are tenets for success that cross over from every area of a sport. So you can take the dedication, the discipline, the hard work, the perseverance, the teamwork, the support, the belief. You can take all those tenets and apply it to any area of life and be successful. He pushed his players to say, now, take all those tenets that made us successful in rugby. Use your platform that you've created, that you've earned, that you have, and take that back to South Africa and share it with our people. Inspire them. Give them the tenets of success. Give them the hope that they need to be successful in your life. Give them all of these characteristics that made us champions of the world. Take those characteristics and use it for the good and inspire the nation with it. Use your platforms. Get out there, speak the message. If you're too fearful to speak the message, find another way to share that. Share it with your audience. team up with somebody and use their platform and spread the message out wider, because this is bigger than us. We can move the nation forward in a positive direction by being a beacon of hope and light, and change every system that is currently broken in our society. And using rugby as a platform, let's change the system bit by bit, whether it's politically, culturally, in just small business, large business. We can change it, and you're the voices to do it now, because you've earned the right to be listened to be heard, and you are the heroes of this nation. And I love that he applied that to his athletes and challenged them to do more. Do not just be an athlete. Do not just say I'm a rugby player. Say I'm a South African. Say I am a hero. You are the superhero of your nation. Use your gift for good, not just rugby. Use it to change lives, from your family to your friends, to the children looking up to you, to your elders above you. You can change everybody's life and make this nation better. That was the pinnacle of the documentary for me. Inspiring hope, moving change, and chasing the sun in every respect of life. It may not be on the pitch, winning a World Cup, but you can chase the sun in all of your areas of expertise: work, family, home, love, relationship, happiness. Inspire the nation, use that hope, take the tenets and apply it to your life, and you too will be successful. Absolutely love the documentary. I want to know your thoughts on it, Qrew. Thank you so much for dialing me into it, and I'm inspired. You know, it's so cool to see people succeed in life and come from such diverse backgrounds and come together as a unit. There is no separation between us, our skin color, our religion, our backgrounds. We can all come together as people, as a humanity, and grow, support, and celebrate each other's success. It may not have been your country that won the World Cup, but you can still be inspired by a South African team that wins the World Cup, by a New Zealand team that wins the World Cup. And the sport, the competition of sport is a beautiful thing. And how they referenced Nelson Mandela, talking about sports is one of the things that can transcend people, to bring us together as a people, to inspire us. No matter who it is, we can all be inspired by the athletic prowess and love and sport, competition that sport brings to the world. It's such a beautiful thing, and I absolutely love this documentary. And I'm having a fantastic time being in this Rugby World Qrew with you. Thank you for the recommendation. I really enjoyed Chasing the Sun 1 and 2, and I want to know your thoughts on this season as well. And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on how, if you're from South Africa, you live in South Africa, how have you seen the change in your country from the success of your South African rugby team? I would love to hear, your personal experience, how it changed and motivated you, and what your thoughts are. Qrew, I love you. I appreciate you. Always stay laser focused on your dreams and your vision, and remember that you're in control. Catch you on the next one, all right? Peace.